Hello everyone. This is Chonghan Yu again from Yujawan TV YouTube channel, and this video is the second part of the IFRS 17, validating actuarial model sample. In the next video, I cover the estimate of future cash outflow, which is a claim outgo to, let's say, apply the bootstrapping, which is a random sampling with replacement, how I can get the distribution estimate in the framework in accident year and development year. And that's just one piece of the fulfillment cash flow. And I'll show you how I can do the same thing to estimate the future cash, this time inflows, which is a premium, using whatever the actuarial model that I have developed. Let's just look at the Excel spreadsheet here. In the last video, I didn't mention about the some of the standards in the standards details, but this time I just wanna point out the very specific the principles in the standard and like what I am doing here. Actually, I was given this set of, let's say, the the contract, and uh, let me review it. I apply the full retrospective approach to measure at initial recognition of this, set of contract. Let's say I'll mention it, but later on I will, change it. And I'm gonna do the transition all the way up to 2021 year end, December 31st, to get ready to implement the IFRS 17. And how am I going to do that? I need to do the onerous test on this set of contract to determine the set of contract will be the group of contract that I'm going to measure it subsequently until the end of contract boundary. And yeah, I just try to show you the sample actuarial model, but I will go back and share some of the principle with you guys to understand the very key points of the actuarial paradigm shift. And let's have a look at this standards. I would say this is a subsection of owner's contract in the measurement. And in the IFRS 17 in the future, when you have the new contracts coming in, and you have to, let's say, classify the total new contract first in the different portfolios. It says the similar risks and manage it together. So life side or whatever the medical reimbursement or annuity or something like that. Or in the PNC side, long term, pretty much the same as the life insurance company, like death type or survival type or medical reimbursement or liability or and so on. But the PNC side is like the personal automobile or business automobile or commercial automobile and all the general insurance side. And in there, probably you have to let's say have a different portfolios, and in portfolio there you have to first determine which number of contract you're gonna measure it. because one of the key point in an actuarial paradigm shift is that in IFRS 17, you have to measure a group of contract unless there is some of the exceptional cases you have to measure it on an individual contract basis. And I'm going to mention it from the IFRS 17 standards. And anyhow, you 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 get the new, let's say, portfolio in there. You wanna finalize, let's say, selection of like multi-contract to measure it. You have to come up with the fulfillment cash flow. Like there is an onerous test, but onerous test means you have to estimate the fulfillment cash flow, and it includes everything. And this fulfillment cash flow in the introduction of this standard says risk adjusted present value future cash flows. If I say it in detail, you would say in the formula wise, fulfillment cash flow is equal to risk adjusted present value estimate of future cash outflows minus risk-adjusted present value estimate of future cash inflows. It's very similar to, like the future loss random variable in actuarial mathematics that you guys, all probably have a look at it at that time when you study for the exam or whatever. And that is very similar structure. The difference is that this is, risk adjusted. Or if I, say it in a little bit differently based on this, initial measurement in the standard section is, structure-wise, it's just a summation of building block 1, 2, 3. Building block 1 is the estimate of, future cash flows. And second one is just adjusted value to reflect the time value of the money and the financial risk to the extent that, cash flows doesn't have uncertainty there. And third one is risk adjustment for non-financial risk. That is also the adjusted amount. And if you come up with the estimate of fulfillment cash flows, that is the onerous test. The standard says is that fulfillment cash flow in total are a net outflow. This set of contract would be finalized as a onerous group of contract. Okay, so when we say onerous test means that if you are not satisfied with it, okay, and probably you just reshuffle the multiple contract and try to get another set of contract based on different random variable, or for example like male female discrepancy or different age group or whatever the other underwriting dimensions, you can come up with different set of contract and to do the another onerous test. When you do that, when I say is some of the building block 1, 2, 3, it means that you need to be equipped with all this actuarial model to get an estimate of those 3 different components. And then this time, when you look at it and you got a positive number, and that is a net outflow, and then you can say, okay, I'm satisfied with this onerous test, and then this set of contract will be a group of contract. That's what the standard says, right? Set of contract is just a normal term, but the group of contract, which is defined by number 16 and 17, you need to go through an onerous test to finalize this is an onerous group of contract or non-onerous group of contract. And the basis for conclusion says that it's because it's based on the law of large number, and each individual contract has a like offsetting effect, and how you can you know like have the profitability information as a like group of contract instead of individual contract. So it is mentioning that. Oh, it's getting longer. But anyway, I'll try to make it as simple as possible. And it says to the extent that paragraph 17 applies, an entity may identify the group of onerous contract by measuring a set of contract rather than individual contract. Yeah, it gently says may, but this is like very, very strict one. And yeah, the other one is like something like that. And another thing that I really share with you guys is, how we can interpret the building block one, estimate of future cash flow, especially the first, the most important, let's say, like characteristics or criteria. The estimate of future cash flow shall be unbiased. Okay, and this is Appendix B application guideline, and you can like have a look at this. Has also the translation version in Korean, but I just wanna go through the English, and you guys can have a like look at the another set of video that I interpret the standards and application guideline. And then B38 says it's very, very detailed, okay? It's very kind. What is it? The estimate future cash flow starting point is a range of scenarios that reflect full range of possible outcomes, okay? And then the second sentence is gonna like, is telling you that what kind of, let's say, structure of your actuarial model to generate the full range of like scenarios. And it says each scenario, yeah, I mean scenario means that, let's say, if I run in the example that I showed you for the like the cash outflows, I have a 1,000 different scenarios. Each scenario specifies the amount and timing of the cash flow, right? Cash outflows or inflows, amount, and when it's paid for a particular outcome, right? Out of total 1,000 different outcomes. And the estimated probability of that outcome. Wow, which sounds very complicating, but out of 1,000, you have to come up with the, like probability estimate as well. And then those are discounted and weighted by, like discounted means, you apply the yield rate, the forward rate, or, like those thing, and also weighted by estimated probability. It is very detailed in the expression of how you can do it. And also, consequently, the objective is not to develop most likely outcome, right? Probably people say best estimate, and you cannot find the best estimate of whatever liability or something like that in standards. There's some ancient history. A most likely outcome, or a more likely than not outcome, right? So this is all like what it says is that it's not like to come up with the point estimate above there scenario generation. And another one that I try to identify is that, like I showed you how I can generate the 1,000 different scenarios, but the standard says you don't need to do it. I mean, like if it is like undue cost and effort. In practice, developing explicit scenario is unnecessary under the condition that the resulting estimate is consistent with the measurement objective of considering blah blah blah, right? When determining the mean, not the point estimate. How am I? How are we going to do that? Let's say if, for example, an entity estimate that the probability distribution of outcome, like PDF or CDF, is broadly consistent with the probability distribution can be described completely with the small number of parameters, it will be sufficient to estimate the small number of parameters, right? It is not sufficient to estimate the future cash flow. No, a small number of parameters. So we all probably have a very basic, knowledge about the statistics. Or when I say the future cash inflows or outflows follows a normal distribution, and you don't need to generate like 10,000 or 50,000 different, let's say, outcomes, so-called scenario. Instead, I would say this follows the normal distribution with what? Mu and sigma estimate. That's what it says. It is sufficient to estimate the small number of parameters, which is mu and sigma in case of normal. Okay? And that's what you can do it, especially for the life insurance carrier. If you assume the normal distribution, you can just estimate the mu and sigma to come up with the building block one, and also like risk adjustment based on the confidence interval or confidence level that you selected. But anyhow, that's why when I, like read the standards, how am I going to be able to the honors test in the first place if I go back? And this is what I have done. And I made a decision that, this set of contract will be one group of contract that I'm going to measure subsequently. So I go back and on the, initial recognition time, and then I did the honors test. And in the previous video, I showed you how I can get an estimate of future cash outflows, which is a claim out goal, and then building block two, like adjusted value, right? And RA is later on, and this one I already showed you. And in terms of, let's say, cash inflow, which is like probably the premium, I have been thinking like ever since it was released, or when I just like tried to come up with the actuarial model. How can I do it? When you look at the, let's say, in terms of contract boundary, I mean, it's not as easy as it looks, like because there are all different kinds of, insurance contract. Like, uh, so anyway, like I'll just, like get back to the point. And premium side, in the, like contract boundary, you can you can regard it as a constant. Once you set up the premium level, that's gonna go forever, all the way up to the end of contract boundary. Why you set up in the initial, let's say, like status and whatever you like, get the new contract, the premium should not change until the end of contract boundary. Okay, that's the only constant that I can, clearly say that. But the way how I'm gonna, like estimate the future cash flow is very tricky, and probably some people let's say, like working in the life insurance side, some of you may have an experience to, let's say, build the exhibit, the persistence rate table, that one I showed you. And the claim side, we look at the, like the contract content to come up with the action year base and the development, right? To get the actual transaction. And premium side is very comparable. When new contract comes in, let's say, starting each quarter, I would call it underwriting quarter. And this is, let's say, like monthly premium or quarterly premium. I'll assume the quarterly premium is coming in, contract boundary. And don't look at the, like value itself. Just, try to, think about the concept itself. I just decompose the premium side based on each underwriting quarter. So when those like group of contract, no, part of the group of contract came in, ever since then it's gonna keep, like paying the premium. So I'll just keep follow on the, like following calendar quarter. And this example's fact pattern is that it, even though I have some additional data, let's assume that new contract is only this year. Yeah, just forget about the annual cohort. This time I group like all the new contract is coming in. This is the basic data, right? Even though I start with the only like this one probably, right? But based on my onerous test and finalize the group of contract, I make a decision, actuarial judgment to include for the following quarters, and I'm gonna include those new contract for the following quarters into one group of contract. And this is the historical data that I have, and I can build up the persistence rate table like this: underwriting quarter and development quarter, and how much like the premium received. You don't have to worry about earned premium and those kind of stuff, and don't worry about like like any other like a detailed changes like premium, like a waiver, or some people forget to pay the premium but it's lapsed or whatever. That's why the standard says like one of the risk adjustment is the non-insurance risk, that is a lapse or persistency. And we technically say that multiple decrement, right? And some of the like several reasons cause why those all the contracts comes in and they decrement by each quarter. There are many reasons, but I tried to come up with the actual model structure to capture all of those based on standards expression definition. I just want to focus on lapse or persistency of this particular like a set of contract to do the onerous test. And then probably like it's very similar to when you estimate the IBNR, and I have the persistency rate, and yet don't look at it as very like very special fact pattern, and I have the persistency rate, and it's like a age to age factor selection. I also have the same as a comparative selection of persistency rate as per each development quarter. And once I select the like persistency rate for each development quarter, and I apply that, and just this is very compatible to like accident year and development year based claim, but this is for the premium. So uh, like a difference is that, let's say you have the premium received for this, contract, and that's the starting point, right? And as time goes by, it's gonna decrement, right? For many reasons. So, like this one, I would say start from 100 and it's gonna go down theoretically towards to zero, right? But in the claim side, you first, like claims occurred, and probably in the first quarter, there is a small, let's say, like the payment portion, and that develops towards the ultimate loss, which is one, right? So in the previous video, one of the video I mentioned about, like even though it is has a structure by like quarterly development pattern. I mean, structure itself is, like a set, and it's quite different, right? But the way how I can come up with the loss development factor is that maybe I can, like select the distribution and apply the maximum likelihood estimation to come up with the loss development factor. And but here persistency, you can look at it as, it starts from one and then it develops towards zero. So can I say that it is like the complement of cumulative density function, which is a survivable distribution? So I can also assume the distribution and apply the maximum likelihood estimation to come up with the selected, persistency rate. And once I have done that, let's say that is too much of a work, but once I have done that, you can have a, like reversely calculate the historical premium development triangle. It's very comparable to claim side, right? And here, the historical triangle and fitted triangle, I have a residual. So I can make this residual as very similar to IID, which is identically and independently distributed. And I apply the bootstrapping to, like run 1,000 different times to have the residual. And out of 1,000, probably I can make, like make a the volume weighted average, which is an unbiased estimate of, like the persistency rate, and apply that and to come up with the, like 1,000 different future premium received. Because you remember, I'm standing at the initial recognition. I'm trying to like predict the future premiums received, and I need to display it on a, like future calendar basis to apply the discount. And I'll just show you how I come up with the, especially the estimate of future premium received. I just, like don't show the number here, but uh, I run 1,000 different scenarios of future premium to receive, and it shows this type of one. If you run it again, this looks like, slightly different, because this is a random, like the stochastic, the running results. And if I run it, yeah, it doesn't take that long. Yep. And then you have a slightly, different. It has a, like it says earlier, I would say the small number of region has a, like a tail. So this one is probably the skewed, the positively skewed, like, opposed to negatively skewed in the claim side. That's really, like that really makes sense. Anyhow, In the aggregate itself, now I have a building block one, and this one is a building block two out of cash inflows, which is a premium. The reason I make it this way is that that I mentioned about like formula of fulfillment cash flows, and this is premium side, and the probably I developed this model on my own because like on the premium side there is no particular model that I have seen it even from UK or Europe or North America. So I came up with my own idea how I can like generate the future premium like scenarios on the initial recognition to come up with the estimate. Yeah, this is very simple, but you have to think about it because I mentioned about some of the like principles in the standards and previously is not only in Korea but also the like East Asian region, even in Europe, they have been struggling how they can build a scenario generation of the future premium, and also how I can get a concept of like set of contract versus group of contract, and what is the honors test, what I'm gonna do. And this one is I applied a full retrospective approach and to come up with the like to the group of contract that I'm gonna measure it in the future and transfer those results all the way up to 2021 fourth quarter. And also, I'm gonna briefly talk about the expense side as well. Expense is people just look at it as very simple, but I think it's another very complicating issue. So I'm gonna probably show you next time how I can generate the future expense like cash flows. So yeah, I mean just look forward to seeing you in the third video of this validating actuarial models. Thank you very much and see you soon.